Welcome to Reading the Bible with Pastor. Today we're on John chapter 11, starting at verse 45. Many of the Jews, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what he did, believed in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. That is, that Jesus had raised Lazarus from the dead. So the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered the council and said, "What are we to do? For this man performs many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take both our place and our nation." Rome had a policy of tolerating older religions and older nations, and here the Jews had an ancient religion, an ancient nation. If Jesus were to instill the people to follow him, Rome may take this as a new religion and have ground to take over the nation of Israel. Also, if the people were to begin to riot, Rome would squash that. And so the high priests and the chief priests are worried about what this might do to their place and their nation. We'll continue with verse 49. But one of them, Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, said to them, "You know nothing at all, nor do you understand that it is better for you that one man should die for the people, not that the whole nation should perish." He did not say this of his own accord, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the nation, and not for the nation only, but also to gather into one the children of God who are scattered abroad. So from that day on, they made plans to put him to death. This continues a theme that we have in John, that the Jews are seeking to kill him. And God uses Caiaphas as a prophet to prophesy that Jesus would come to die in Jerusalem and be the Savior of not just the nation of the Jews, but all nations. We'll continue with verse 54. Jesus, therefore, no longer walked openly among the Jews, but went from there to the region of the wilderness, to a town called Ephraim, and there he stayed with the disciples. Ephraim is a town near Jericho. Now the Passover of the Jews was at hand, and many went up from the country to Jerusalem before the Passover to purify themselves. They were looking for Jesus and saying to one another as they stood in the temple, "What do you think? That he will not come to the feast at all?" Now the chief priests and the Pharisees had given orders that if anyone knew where he was, he should let them know, so that they might arrest him. Chapter 12. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. This is 6 days before Christ is to be crucified. So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining with him at the table. Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with fragrance of the perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, he who was about to betray him, said, "Why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" 300 denarii would be about the year's wages of a man. He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief, and having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. Jesus said, "Leave her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For the poor you always have with you, but you do not always have me." Jesus is making them aware that he is to be crucified and died in Jerusalem, and they will be using this in his preparation for his burial. When the large crowd of the Jews learned that Jesus was there, they came, not only on account of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. So the chief priests made plans to put Lazarus to death as well, because on account of him many of the Jews were going away and believing in Jesus. The Pharisees knew that because Lazarus was raised from the dead, people were believing in him because they had never seen something like this happen, and Jesus was performing this miracle. If they were to kill Lazarus, then there would be no reason for them to believe in this miracle. We'll continue next time with verse 12 and the triumphal entry of Christ.